All right, now real quick, I got to jump in here. I'm kind of interrupting this video that I had recorded late last night, and I had just finished editing. And of course, as soon as you finish, ready to put one thing out, the way this news cycle goes, you just new stuff comes out. And in the past, right, basically now, essentially, Adobe released its new AI generative model. It's called Firefly, and there is NVIDIA and Shutterstock have teamed up. And these are two things that I want to kind of cover in depth. And I'm just going to touch very briefly on the Adobe model really quick because I am cautiously optimistic. I know, it's like, damn, what a blood clot, man. I honestly am. I'm cautiously optimistic because they're saying the buzzwords that make us all go a tingle. Essentially, what they're saying is this is not a stable diffusion clone, which I said in the very beginning. If we find out that Adobe's generative model is basically another stable diffusion, like, I'm done. I am bailing on the entire Creative Suite and I will just figure it out. But this is not a stable diffusion clone. They have trained this model. Now, this is what they're saying. They have trained this model on Adobe stock. That's a little bit of a nut to crack that I'm not going to get into right here. Adobe stock and public domain. So is it possible that Adobe have made the first ethical AI, or simply to date the most ethical AI? That is a possibility. So again, I said I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm going to dig into this. There is a lot of questions that I have that I want to kind of find out before I speak about this too in depth, but I will be over the next couple of days. But I just wanted to kind of hang a lantern on that this happened. I'm going to leave a link to Adobe's press announcement. You can read it for yourself. Some people have actually gotten access to the Adobe Firefly tool, which, as far as generative names go, that's a cool name. Firefly was a great TV show. Good times. Leave a link to that. You can check it out. But we're going to kind of dig a little more into this, and stay tuned to this space. We're definitely going to have more information for you very soon. Plenty to talk about today. And I'm sorry for my absence over the past couple weeks, but every now and then you got to take a step back, focus on getting your work done, sorting all the shit in your life out, and just knowing full well that all of the horrors and the nonsense that you kind of took a step back from, it will absolutely be there when you come back, and will probably have multiplied dramatically. So here we are. Let's get into some shit. So we're going to start off with something I think is very positive. I'm sure a lot of you are aware that the Concept Art Association last week, or last Friday, they did an AI ML summit. Essentially what that means is they got a whole bunch of people from different industries that are affected by, or have, or are in a position to be able to talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning. And they got all these people together on different panels, and there's an entire day's worth of content for you to watch. And I've watched, I'd say, most of this. There's a couple of nuggets that at the point where I was watching, like, they didn't have the, excuse me, the subtitles worked out, so I couldn't watch like the Japanese one, or there was another one, the Latin American. I just don't, my Spanish is not serviceable, but I'm going to post a link here. You can absolutely feel free to watch this. There's a wonderful keynote or introduction by the one and only Steven Zapata, and of course he is as wonderful as he always is. He lays out a lot of things, give a lot of updates on, you know, what's going on, and just so well spoken, thoughtful, and articulate. And boom, high five, my dude. But there's so many videos here. They're all approximately an hour something long. We have intro to the issues. We have the United States panel, EU panel, AI ethics panel. There's a Japan panel, photography oriented, Asia, voiceover. There's a lot of videos here. If there's one particular topic that resonates with you, I highly encourage you to watch it. They're very thoughtful. They have great people. And it's, at the end of the day, worst case scenario, it's just nice to know that, again, we're not alone. There are people with positions of authority, it's a rough word, authority, that are speaking on this issue and are taking the fight to the places that it needs to be taken to in positive and constructive manners. And that's absolutely fantastic. If anything, just go watch, Steven's keynote or introduction. It's fantastic. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is more good news. Hooray for good news. So there's a tweet here from Myjin the artist, and this is very interesting because, look, deepfakes is a problem. It's not just presidents playing video games. While that's kind of entertaining, it's hard for me to watch that and not think about all of the potentially terrible things that could be coming down the pipe from some of this, right? For every Obama and Biden or whatever Trump playing World of Tanks, there is going to be a malicious use of this. And these technologies or these models are improving by the week, by the day, by the hour. And again, I know I don't need to state the obvious here, but how long before somebody uses one of these things to control the outcome of an election or create political dissent? I mean, I'm just imagining people, maybe they're going to hear these things broadcast and they're not going to be able to see the video, or, who knows, where they go, it looks a little uncanny, but some of it is actually quite good. And how long before somebody abuses these things in a way that actually, really kind of screws things up? So on that note, there is something coming down the pipe. It is the AI Deepfake Detection and Public Accountability Act. That sounds cool. Basically, what it does is essentially forces people to disclose AI-generated deepfake content, which I think is huge. Now, this doesn't necessarily, this isn't like an AI art thing. You don't have to post that your AI imagery is generated by AI, but it could move down that pipe. So right now they're just concerned about deepfakes, and having any content with deepfake technology being used has to be labeled as such. Look, this is just the beginning, as we all know, but this is a very good thing. I could kind of speculate a little bit that politicians are afraid, right? But that's a good thing. Like, all of these presidents and whoever playing World of Tanks or Minecraft or whatever the game was that they were playing, yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it might have got a lot of views on YouTube. But as soon as one of these politicians see this and they're like, oh, wait, this could be bad. How long before I'm not playing World of Tanks and I'm playing, World of Taints, so to speak, right? Without using the P word. So that's got their attention, and I think that's very good. So this guy goes on to say, I'd encourage everyone to reach out to their local and state politicians and those involved in this bill to express your grievances and give them political support required to get this bill passed. Deepfakes are a problem that need to be addressed. Once this law is in the books, it could have a cascading effect for other bills to be drafted to regulate generative AI and its outputs as a whole. That is good news. So I know it seemed like the fight was just like small organizations like the Concept Art Association and, Getty, relatively speaking, they're a corporate entity. They've got their lawsuit, but Congress, lawmakers paying attention, that is a win. Now we're going to move to the absurd news. So this guy, Victor Mustar, who, as you can see over here, is an AI tinkerer and head of product design at HUGGINGFACE. If you don't know what HUGGINGFACE is, basically an online portal that lets you use a kind of limited version of Stable Diffusion. And this guy made this. It's supposed to be Star Wars. we just kind of let this play because it's really bad. But the thing to notice here is that the entire thing was generated with this Shutterstock watermark here, which basically lets you know that he took a bunch of Shutterstock images, trained this, or whatever it was pulling from is pulling from the Shutterstock image database, right? And Shutterstock is kind of its own complex thing that we will talk about later. I don't want to get into it here because I think like that's like a 15-minute conversation about their AI portal that they put on, how it affects the creators on there, and how I feel about it. It's not super favorable, but I don't think they're going to like this. So this, look, this guy, essentially what he does here as the head of product design for Hugging Face, he makes this thing and then he goes on to talk about, well, here's how you can go on our website and you can do this yourself from start to finish. So if that's not exploitative, if that's not promotion of your entity that you work for, I don't really know what is. This isn't really a personal project. Like, hey, look at this thing I did. I know it sucks, so I just like dinky doodling around. No, this is seriously just promotion for Hugging Face, and I don't really see how this is okay. The funny thing is that this guy actually feels like it's completely fine to leave this up. I'm hoping Shutterstock sees this and they do take some action. He does go on and break it down. He says, yeah, I just had to generate a bunch of clips and then I threw them into DaVinci Resolve. Where's the dancing? Like, okay, like this guy. So he's got a 16 millimeter film camera from the 50s or 60s, which is badass, right? It definitely doesn't read as a gun to me. But he's standing there, and then this thing comes dancing at him, and they get into basically a dance-off. Dance off, dance off, pants off. Yeah, this is just terrible. It looks so bad. Look at the lightsaber and the 16 millimeter camera, and then the dance off. I mean, the dance off is really the best part. I do kind of enjoy that. It doesn't change the fact that this is absolutely nonsensical. You can read the comments here. I will put the link to this guy's Twitter here. You can go down. There's some comments on here. You can kind of read some of the replies on some of them. Oh, that's so good. And you can kind of draw your own conclusions. But again, very simply, head of product design at Hugging Face makes this thing saying you can do this on our website using copyrighted material. Absolutely zero F's given. And is that a big shocker to anybody? Is anybody going, wow, I can't believe they actually did that? Because the generative AI people really generally sure, golly gosh, they sure do care about copyrights and people's rights. It's so out of character. That's sarcasm. And we're going to keep it moving here. Now, this one kind of pisses me off. So we went from like kind of good news to kind of stupid news to now a little annoyed. I'm going to read you this Reddit post from user Not So Bright. Oh, the A irony. So it says, bored with Greg Rakowski? Be inspired by other artists with this showcase workflow and links in the comments. More to come. Basically what they're saying is there are a ton of artists that get great results in stable diffusion. Some of my faves are these people. I've started trying to go through them. They made a little slideshow. I'm going to show you that in a second. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, what do you even say here? Here's the thing I want to point out. For every person out there, when the topic of Greg Rakowski or artist style prompts come on, who responds with a comment that says, now so many more people are going to hear about them that never would have heard about them. My response to that is very simple. Being known by people who view you not as an actual human being, but simply as a collection of letters to string together in order to facilitate a certain aesthetic in a piracy-based image generation software has less value, actually has a negative value, because all that does is makes you far more known as someone to be exploited. They don't see a human being. None of these people are working in the industry and say, you know what, I've used XYZ's name as an artist style prompt and I got super awesome results, let me contact the head of the creative department and say, hey, you should absolutely contact this person and let's hire them and let's help them economically and support their family and get the real stuff involved. That's not happening. You are essentially a a faceless name on a list that is part of a prompt. It has absolutely zero value, and I do tire of hearing that particular perspective expressed. It's completely nonsensical. They put a slideshow together of other artists and just rip off their styles too. It's egregious. It's disgusting. But this is nice stuff here. This is really nice work. Let me make this a little smaller. I'll read you. You know what? I'm not going to, just for the sake of not saying these people's names, not because I don't want to give them credit for their incredible work. I just don't want anything that kind of helps perpetuate the thought that you can just steal these people's work and put it into your model and then be them and basically steal their artistic identity. I find this to be absolutely disgusting. Well, let's move on to something very important now. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, or maybe you just did what I did over the past couple weeks and you kind of took a step back, right? You decided that you needed a break from the insanity and you went outside and you sat under a tree and you picked grass up. You threw it in the air and you watched butterflies and dragonflies fly around and you marveled at the wonders of nature. Looked up at the clouds and said, those are absolutely stunning. I could stare at them all day, but then real life creeps in. You're like, I gotta go back to my freaking computer. You have heard about Glaze. Now, what Glaze essentially is a way for artists to apply a more embedded, subtle type of watermark that essentially its function is to trick AI models, right, into thinking that the art is something different than it is, right? So you can ideally feel confident again about posting your artwork after you've run it through Glaze, knowing that if a bad actor wants to come along and take your artwork, or potentially even a mass scraper bot comes along and they're aggregating your data and your IP to train a new model, that Glaze is supposed to trick it into thinking it's a completely different style, right? So let's see if I can zoom in. Let's do some Command Plus here so we can see this a little better. Essentially what it would do, and this is all kind of, it's not perfect yet. This is just the very beginning of this. And huge shout out to Ben Zhao and his team at Chicago University, I think. Sorry if it's something Chicago, I believe. For doing this. This is completely free. I will put the link to the description in the description below. You can download this. There is a Mac version and a Windows version. All of their efforts are unpaid for, and these are superstars. These people are literally heroes. So if you look at this picture here, this is the original artwork. This is the cloaked artwork. These are very small. I'm going to show you my experiment in a second so you can see the different levels of glaze and how it actually affects the way that the image looks. Very hard to tell on these small, but essentially what it's supposed to do is, if you take this piece of cloaked artwork that you've run this process on, after you run it through a model, right, whatever your model is, and you're trying to fine tune on someone's art, it's going to kind of scramble it a little bit. Now, does it work perfectly? It's a yes and no type of thing. Again, it's in the very beginning. They're going to be releasing updates, and unfortunately, well, hold on, let me just take a step back here for a second. So this right here, this was my version that I did. This is a piece of concept art that I made like a year or two ago, but I want to show you. So this is the pure image. So it has absolutely there is no glazing right here. See, it's pretty smooth. It's pretty normal. Now over here we move to very low. Now, when you open Glaze, there's different settings. So this is very low, and you're starting to see this glazing get involved here, right? You can see it. It creates kind of a texture, and I don't really hate it. It's not super offensive. I think also it's important to note that once you get really small, it's essentially imperceptible. But then we move over here to low, and you can kind of see it a little more, right? This is low. And we move over here to medium, and now we have something that's you can kind of see. And I'm not making any sort of judgment or opinion on this. I just ripped this out at different settings just for people's reference, so you kind of get an idea. And this is high, so you can see it's pretty noticeable here. But having said that, obviously the higher the setting, the more protection it offers. Now, somebody had a really good idea in my Discord, and they said, well, you could rip out a couple of different versions and do like an HDR type of thing where you maybe on certain parts of it, you can paint out the high and go to a lower one, and just pick your bits, and maybe the sky has less, or maybe the ground has a little more where you don't really quite see it so much. And that could be a solution too. Now, moving forward from this, and again, really so far, it's a great idea. This is, in my opinion, unfortunately going to become something of like an arms race, because we are already seeing people getting upset. On Twitter, we saw people saying, this is completely unethical. You're trying to poison our data sets. Like, wait, what? These are the people we're dealing with. Not everyone, not all of them, but there are more than enough bad actors out there to absolutely necessitate tools like this. Now, here's a fun little tweet I'm going to read from you. And if you're familiar with the back and forths that many of us have with AI proponents, you will understand the delicious irony. I'm just going to read this to you. This is from Athea at Around the Artist. Absolutely fantastic little quote before I get into something disgusting, but it just goes like this. It goes, it's not illegal to use Glaze. Glaze is just a tool. It protects artwork the same way humans do. If you don't like Glaze, then you're a Luddite. We have to develop Glaze quick before China does. The art protecting genie is out of the bottle, and you can't stop progress. Now, I have mixed feelings about this tweet. One, brilliant. It echoes every bit of the ridiculous arguments that we hear from these people that they try to defend this. It's mental gymnastics. I think we all know that. But it's almost like the people out there, the bad actors I'm referring to, they're just going to look at this as a challenge, and they're going to start to go out of their way to try to crack Glaze. And of course, it came swiftly and immediately the day that Glaze was dropped, and it came from a place I absolutely did not expect. It didn't come from some small third-party user who said, hey, I kind of figured out a way around removing the watermark and then got the thing to train and yada, yada, yada. It was spawning. Now, say, who the hell is spawning and why do I care? Well, spawning is the people behind the Have I Been Trained website, right? If you're not familiar with Have I Been Trained, which I'm sure most of you have, it's basically a place where you can go, you can type up your name, and you can see if you are in the Lion 5B dataset. Now, in the beginning, I used this website, and then I went back to it a couple months later and tried to use it, and it was like buggy as hell. It actually took me to some really weird NSFW website, and I just immediately closed it down. I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. But what they claim to be doing is essentially to say, we are a AI company who is for artists by artists. Now, I looked at their team of people. I didn't see any actual artists on their team. They're all kind of like AI engineers. Maybe they have art backgrounds. A couple of them don't even make posts. And I think the head of it actually had the term NFT in his Twitter handle. So that's kind of telling. Anyway, they are claiming to be AI for artists by artists. And their whole thing is that we have we have connections to Stability AI, and we are opting people's artwork out. We have opted millions of people's artworks out already. And while that is good, right? It's good. It's a good thing to start opting out. We all know that opt out is not the model. If these guys were really serious about creating an ethical or an artist friendly model, it would obviously be an opt-in model. Like, opt out is ridiculous. It's an entire process you have to go through, but they've opted out what they said to be 60 million or 80 million images so far, and that sounds like a lot, but when you think about it in the context of the Lion 5B dataset, 80 million or 60 million, forgive me, it's whatever, of 5.8 billion is actually 0.03%. But this is who they are. So essentially, they put out a tweet, which was since deleted, and they say basically, I'm going to sum this up. I'm not going to read this entire thing for you, but they basically said that they cracked Glaze and that they sent an email with all that information to Ben Zhao, the legend who created this tool. Now, it turned out to be true. They did in fact send an email to the team. It went to one specific member because there was a tweet by Ben saying that we did not receive this, but it turned out actually that they did get that. So, to Spawning's credit, they did in fact send an email, but in my opinion, they should not have publicly disclosed this. So basically what they said here was, we glazed some images, trained them into the model. Now, it's kind of hard to see here, but if you look at these glazed images, you can see there's a sort of texture over it. This is the watermarking that became apparent, right? And it still picked up the style of DALL-E. Like, they trained DALL-E in there, which, I would go ahead and say that's not a great place to do it, because DALL-E already exists in the base training. Now, they didn't use his name in their prompt, they said, so it's a little fuzzy, but these are the glazed generations, right? You can see the watermark, there's some texture here, and in my opinion, even though it didn't necessarily do what they said it would do, which was completely fool it into doing something completely night and day, I would say that these images with this watermarking texture here essentially makes it unusable here for these people. Now, it looks bad. Now, these are after they applied their workaround or the way to deglaze the images. I'd say they're actually kind of similar. They kind of got the DALL-E vibe, but they just look a little cleaner. And I don't think they should have done this publicly. This is something you do. You take your findings and you send it to them. If you are truly pro artists, you don't publicly use this as what they use this for, and that is essentially to glorify their approach of opting out using our tools. This entire Substack here, which I will link down in the description below, feels incredibly self-serving. They are, there's some nice words in here like, oh, we sure do applaud those guys for creating this tool, but at the end of the day, I'm summing up, our approach is better, works better, but it's the whole thing just made my fucking skin crawl, and that's not great. It says we have shared our findings with the Glaze team. It's not filling me with confidence. This entire spawning AI model just makes my skin crawl a little bit. Again, is it good they're opting people's art out? Sure. Is it super simple to do that? I hear mixed things. I read mixed things. It's complicated, but again, keep this to yourself. Just by saying that, oh, we figured out this workaround, it only took us a little while, and then going on to basically talk about, oh, it's like takes forever to glaze your images, but opting out is a one-time commitment and it's gone forever. Like, we're the best, and then the carbon footprint, and then, we're just doing so great and we care so much. It's just It's it was like the first 30 minutes of my day this morning. Mr. Mackey flying around the hallway. It is what it is. So that's Glaze. Go to the link, download it, check it out for yourself. I kind of talked about this a little too much because it's going to evolve. They're going to do updates. And again, as I kind of said briefly, I think we're kind of entering into a weird like AI cloaking arms race. And we're going to see how it goes. Now, here's some other really good, important news. And this is, I'm going to put this link down below because this is actually actionable and really good and interesting news. And essentially what's happening here, Copyright Office is doing a spring 2023 AI listening session. And they're going to be discussing AI generative models in terms of copyright. Now, there's a couple of links here. There's a register to attend link, and there's also a request to participate link. So if you are an artist and you feel you have something to say here that's relevant, or you share your personal experience, absolutely go here, check it out. You can register, again, register to attend, request to participate. There is 3 different workshops. There is an audiovisual workshop, and there is literary works, and there is visual arts. This affects all of these groups and more, actually. And this is really good news. It goes to show that the Copyright Office is paying attention. I will just remind you guys very briefly and wonderfully that the Zarya of the Dawn AI generated slop comic was not granted copyright on any of its visual material. However, it was granted copyright for the written words therein and maybe the name of it. If you don't remember this nonsense, real quick, it looked like this. It was terrible, and supposedly was going to get copyright, and that was also terrible. But then the Copyright Office came back and said, oh wait, we kind of like messed this up, and we didn't read the paper or something. It kind of slipped through the cracks, and there is no copyright, and that's absolutely fantastic. So all right, now we're going to bad news, guys. We're moving into the world of ChatGPT. Just a little scoochy boochie boochie. Now, if you watch some of my other videos, you know I am extremely concerned about massive layoffs happening in big companies and AI replacing human beings, and this is going to happen exponentially. And this article here is very telling. It's basically titled, again, link down in the description. This is on Gizmodo. Microsoft scraps entire ethical AI team amid AI boom, which seems antithetical, right? Like, if there's like an AI boom, wouldn't you increase your ethics staff? No. Those pesky ethics people, they don't have any place here. And it kind of echoes the conversations that we've all had, right? Like, you get in the comments of some of these people and you want to engage in a dialogue and you bring up ethics, and they dismiss just the entire concept of ethics just so out of hand. They're like, that's just nonsense. There's no ethics. I don't agree with your ethics. And really, we see it here. That's a mentality that seems to come from the top down. Shit rolls downhill, my friends. So they scrapped their entire ethical team. Now, I remember in the beginning, I said to myself, I don't think that any ethics team at any of these companies is given any credence, right? They may or may not be mandated. I was under the impression back in the day that all these AI development companies, they had some sort of mandate to have an ethics team, which to me was like very weak, because you can mandate having an ethics team, which incidentally it wasn't true. I just made that shit up. You can have an ethics team. It doesn't mean you're going to listen to them. It doesn't mean that the suggestions that they make are going to be implemented or honestly even remotely listened to. So over the past, 6 months, year, they have systematically, Microsoft, whittled down their ethics team, and now at the point they just simply do not exist. So they laid off thousands of people, invested billions into AI, and then got rid of the ethics team. That seems perfect. What could possibly go wrong? I don't see anything that's gonna go wrong. Everything is gonna be fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. We're fine. I'm fine. We're fine. Fucking. I mean, this is what's going on. Again, link down in the description. You can read this. I'm not gonna read this entire thing, but it's very, very telling. This is the mentality. It's just the Jurassic Park quote. You're so busy, focusing on if you could, you never stop to think about if you should. Good times. So here's another amazing article. This one is in The Guardian. Sometimes I really like The Guardian. Sometimes I'm a little like, on The Guardian. But this is a great article. And it's simply titled, "The Stupidity of AI." I'm not going to read this entire thing. It kind of goes through a little bit of a history of AI, but essentially it talks about data. It talks about how unethical it is. And it's a pretty long article and gives it's kind of a recap over the past few years. At the end of the day, it comes to the conclusion that, these models, this is not really going to be a good thing. We need to slow this down. Now, nobody is arguing that there aren't potential positive uses for these models. That's just a fact. I think we all know that. But by and large, the low-hanging fruit that a lot of these companies are going for, it is just that. It's low-hanging fruit. And again, feel free to read this. Absolutely great article. And I think we're going to leave this one right here for now. And don't get me wrong, there's a million other things that we can talk about, but I think about an hour that I've been rambling now is quite enough. I'm going to be making more videos. There's this absolutely insane amount of things to talk about, as I said, but I'm going to close this off with the thing that I always say, and what I think is the most important thing, is that in the midst of all this chaos, in the midst of the pending legal battles that we are so optimistic about ending well, you cannot forget to be creative. Keep your pencils moving, keep your styluses going. Learn new skills, work on your fundamentals, channel your creative impulses. They are valuable, right? The act of making art has value. The process of creation is good for your brain. Something that maybe a lot of people don't understand because they're so hung up on, well, you can completely automate your process and be more productive. Just they don't get it. So keep your pencils moving, keep your paintbrushes going, stay creative, don't forget to make art, stay positive, and support things like the Concept Art fundraiser right here. Absolutely. They are, let's see, we're at 248 of 270. That is just over $20,000 shy of their goal. And I have it on very good authority. And don't let this make you think, oh, that they don't need it. They don't need my $10, my $5, my $20. They have already started this process, right? You didn't need to reach the entire amount in order to get this process started. So support organizations like the Concept Art Association. Get involved with different things that are happening, like this copyright office listening thing. There is hope. A lot of people are coming around. I mean, you see it out there on YouTube. Huge creators are warning, like, this is not good. The sentiment around these tools is really shifting towards like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's not just the AI tech bros who are like, yo, this is progress, you bunch of freaking Luddites. And I gotta say, on a little side nugget, after like 5 side nuggets that I've put in a row, I just want to take this side nugget and dip it in some delicious Mulan dipping sauce and say, they're getting quieter. I'm not hearing as many comments that are like, adapt or die, you freaking Luddite. The conversation is getting a little more civil, and they're kind of quieting down a little bit, because I think they understand that a lot of their straw man whataboutism arguments are really easy to take apart, and they're probably also just exhausted as well. I know that was something that was going on with me. I got a little exhausted. I don't want to say I got to the point where I reached apathy, but again, I needed to take a little bit of break, and then I come back and I'm energized, and let's just keep the conversation going, guys, because it's more than just art here. This is something that will affect humanity. This is something that will affect millions upon millions of people going forward. And on that note, stay positive, stay creative. Much love. I wish you all good luck in the wars to come. Peace.